alien girl believed she was immune to pain. That was before she slept next to a human. The girl who couldn't break on the crystalline planet Azura, where emotion was considered a weakness and logic reigned supreme. Lyra was born different. Her violet skin shimmered with an iridescence uncommon even among her species. But it wasn't her appearance that set her apart. Lyra couldn't feel pain. Not the burn of Azura's 3 suns. Not the bite of its frost-covered nights. Not even the sting of a medical needle. "Another perfect score," announced the medical technician, removing the neural probes from Lyra's temples. "Zero pain response across all stimuli." Lyra nodded without expression, though internally she felt the familiar hollow pride. At 26 cycles, she had undergone these tests countless times. Her condition, neural sensory disconnection, was exceedingly rare among Azurans, occurring in perhaps 1 in 10 million births. "The science directorate will be pleased," continued the technician, his gray eyes clinically assessing her. "Your physiological resilience makes you an ideal candidate for the Earth diplomatic mission." Lyra's heart quickened despite her outward calm. Earth, the planet of emotional beings, of chaotic sensations and unpredictable reactions. The idea both fascinated and terrified her. Later that evening, as Azura's moons cast prismatic light through her chamber's crystal walls, Lyra packed her belongings methodically. Her quarters reflected the Azuran aesthetic, minimal, functional, without personal touches. She paused at her reflection in the polished stone mirror, tall and slender with her characteristic purple skin, eyes the color of distant nebulae, and the geometric patterns that naturally adorned her forehead. "Lyra," her parent unit Ven called from the doorway, their formal posture betraying no emotion. "You have been selected for Earth." "Yes," she replied, turning. The medical evaluation was conclusive. "My inability to feel pain makes me ideally suited for their environment." Ven stepped forward almost hesitantly. "Earth humans are different. They feel everything intensely." "They value these feelings." "A evolutionary weakness," Lyra recited automatically, repeating what all Azuran children learned. "Emotion clouds judgment and hinders progress." "Perhaps," Ven said, surprising her. "Yet they have achieved much despite this. Or because of it. Their art, music, literature, all born from emotion." Lyra looked at her parent curiously. "You sound as if you admire them." "I studied Earth culture during my tenure at the archives. They are fascinating, contradictory." Ven paused, then did something unprecedented, reached out and touched Lyra's shoulder. "Be careful, my child. Your immunity to physical pain has protected you, but there are other kinds of pain." That night Lyra lay awake contemplating Ven's words. Throughout her life she had viewed her condition as an advantage. Unable to be hurt, she tackled dangerous tasks without hesitation. She climbed the highest crystal formations, swam in the acidic lakes, and ventured into the storm-ravaged outlands, all without fear. Yet sometimes, watching others, she felt a curious emptiness. When her childhood companion Tars broke his arm and cried, when her instructors praised her work, when the spring flowers burst into bloom, others responded with visible emotion while Lyra observed. Detached and wondering, as she drifted to sleep, she wondered what awaited her on Earth. Would humans truly be so different? And what did Ven mean about other kinds of pain? Tomorrow she would begin her journey to a world where people embraced what Azuran spent lifetimes suppressing. A world where feeling was not a weakness, but a way of life. This earthbound diplomat. The Earth atmospheric entry was rougher than Lyra had anticipated. While the other Azuran diplomats gripped their seats, faces tense with discomfort, she remained impassive. The ship shuddered violently, but Lyra felt only curiosity as she watched Earth's blue expanse grow larger through the viewport. "First time off-world?" asked the Azuran commander. "Yes," Lyra replied, her eyes fixed on the approaching planet. "It's more vibrant than our simulation suggested." When they finally landed at the International Diplomatic Center in Geneva, Lyra was immediately struck by Earth's sensory bombardment. Bright colors, strange sounds, and most disorienting, the smell of countless unfamiliar substances. Azura's sterile environment had not prepared her for this assault on her senses. A small welcoming committee awaited them. Among them stood a human male with warm brown skin, curly black hair, and eyes the color of Earth's forests. He stepped forward with an easy smile that seemed to transform his entire face. "Welcome to Earth. I'm Dr. Elijah Reed, but please call me Eli, he said, extending his hand toward the Azuran delegation. When it came to Lyra's turn, she hesitated before touching his palm. The unexpected warmth of his skin startled her. I'm Lyra, xenobiological research specialist, she said, withdrawing her hand quickly. You're unusually warm, Eli laughed, a sound that seemed to ripple through the air. And you're refreshingly direct. Yes, humans run about 37 degrees Celsius. Warmer than Azurans, I believe. Your temperature regulation is inefficient, Lyra observed. Perhaps, Eli conceded with another smile, but it has its advantages. I've been assigned as your scientific liaison during your stay. Over the following weeks, Eli guided Lyra through Earth's scientific facilities. He was patient with her directness and seemed genuinely fascinated by her purple-hued skin and the natural patterns adorning her face. Unlike the formal distant interactions on Azura, Eli spoke animatedly, often touching her arm to draw attention to something or leaning close to explain a concept. You're very tactile, Lyra noted one afternoon as they walked through a botanical garden. Is this common among humans? Touch is important to us, Eli explained. It's how we connect, comfort each other. Does it bother you? Lyra considered this. No, it's unfamiliar but not unpleasant. I've been meaning to ask, Eli said, stopping beside a flowering tree. The medical brief mentioned you have neural sensory disconnection. You can't feel pain? Correct. It makes me ideal for this mission. I can adapt to Earth's conditions without discomfort. Eli's expression turned thoughtful. But pain serves a purpose, Lyra. It warns us of danger, tells us when to stop. I have other ways of assessing threats, Lyra replied. My condition is an advantage, is it? Never feeling pain means never knowing relief. Never experiencing fear means never knowing courage. Eli reached up, catching a falling blossom. Some of life's most beautiful experiences come after pain, or through risking it. Lyra watched as he gently placed the flower behind her ear, his fingers briefly brushing her temple. Something stirred within her, not pain, not pleasure, but a strange new awareness she couldn't classify. Tomorrow we leave for the Montana Research Station, Eli said, seemingly unaware of her internal confusion. The weather report isn't great, but the facility has important data on atmospheric composition that might interest your team. Lyra nodded, still distracted by the unfamiliar sensation that lingered where his fingers had touched her skin. On Azura, such casual contact would be unthinkable. Yet here, under Earth's golden sunlight, surrounded by the riot of scented blossoms, she found herself wondering what other unfamiliar experiences awaited her. Snowbound revelations. The Montana Research Station sat nestled among towering pines, surrounded by mountains that seemed to scrape the sky. Lyra stood at the window watching fat snowflakes begin to fall as Eli checked the communication system. The storm's intensifying faster than predicted, he said, frowning at the monitor. The evacuation transport won't make it before the pass closes. Is this problematic? Lyra asked, observing how the snowfall had thickened in just minutes, now obscuring the nearby trees. Eli ran a hand through his hair, a gesture Lyra had come to recognize as a sign of concern. It means we're stuck here, possibly for days. The rest of the team left this morning. It's just us. The realization that they would be alone together sent an unexpected flutter through Lyra's chest. Over the past weeks, she had grown accustomed to Eli's presence. His thoughtful questions, his ready laughter, the way he listened intently when she spoke of Azura. As night fell, the storm transformed into a howling blizzard. The temperature dropped precipitously, and the station's heating system struggled against the brutal cold. The backup generator is working, but we need to conserve power, Eli explained, gathering blankets from a storage closet. We should stay in one room tonight. Lyra nodded, following practical logic. Your species is more susceptible to cold. You should take the blankets. Eli laughed softly, always the scientist. But even Azurans need warmth, pain immune or not. Your body can still suffer damage even if you don't feel it. They settled in the small research quarters, the single bed pushed against the wall. Eli hesitated, visibly uncomfortable. I can sleep on the floor, he offered. That's illogical, Lyra stated. Shared body heat is more efficient. On Azura, we prioritize survival over social conventions. Eventually, they lay side by side under the blankets, the howling wind rattling the windows. Lyra was acutely aware of Eli beside her, The rhythm of his breathing, the warmth radiating from his body. She had never been this physically close to anyone before. "Tell me about Azura," Eli said softly in the darkness. "What do you miss?" The question caught Lyra off guard. "Miss? I don't think in those terms." "Everyone misses home sometimes," Eli persisted gently. Lyra considered this. The light, perhaps. Azura's crystals capture and refract sunlight in ways that make the whole planet glow from within. "Like you," Eli murmured, so quietly Lyra almost didn't hear. "Explain." "Your skin," he said. "When you talk about something that interests you, it seems to glow from within. Like right now." Lyra glanced down to see her purple skin indeed had a subtle luminescence, a physiological response she normally controlled carefully on Azura, where such displays were considered undisciplined. "A simple biochemical reaction," she said dismissively. "Beautiful, nonetheless," Eli replied, his voice warm in the darkness. Somehow, during the night they had drawn closer. Lyra woke to find Eli's arm draped protectively over her waist, his face peaceful in sleep. The intimacy should have made her uncomfortable, yet instead, she felt a curious sense of belonging. As the storm raged outside, Lyra lay still, studying the human beside her, wondering at the unfamiliar sensations stirring within her. Sensations that, while not physical pain, created an ache she couldn't name but somehow didn't want to end. At the first ache 3 days into the blizzard, Lyra noticed subtle changes in her responses to Eli. When he smiled, her heartbeat accelerated. When their hands brushed while preparing meals, a pleasant warmth lingered on her skin. These physiological reactions puzzled her. They resembled nothing in her Azuran medical training. On the evening of the 3rd day, they sat before the fireplace Eli had managed to ignite, the dancing flames casting golden light across the room. Outside, the storm had begun to abate, but the research station remained isolated, communications still down. "We should be able to leave tomorrow," Eli said, adding another log to the fire. "Are you eager to rejoin your delegation?" Lyra considered the question. Logic dictated she should be impatient to resume her diplomatic duties, yet she felt strangely reluctant. "The isolation has provided unexpected research opportunities," she said carefully. Eli smiled. "Is that Azuran for I've enjoyed our time together?" "Perhaps," Lyra admitted, surprising herself with the honesty. Eli moved closer, their shoulders nearly touching. "May I ask you something personal?" When Lyra nodded, he continued, "Have you ever wished you could feel pain, just to know what it's like?" "No," Lyra answered automatically, then hesitated. "Although, sometimes I wonder if I'm missing something essential to the experience of living. On Azura, my condition is considered advantageous, but here on Earth..." She trailed off, struggling to articulate the new uncertainty. "Here on Earth, humans embrace sensation so completely. You seek pleasure, avoid pain, yet willingly risk one for the other. It seems chaotic but purposeful." Eli's expression softened. "May I try something?" He reached for her hand, palm upward. "Tell me what you feel." Tentatively, Eli traced a finger across her palm, a feather-light touch that sent unexpected shivers up Lyra's arm. He continued the gentle exploration, fingertips brushing her wrist, her forearm eventually reaching her face. When his thumb lightly caressed her cheekbone, Lyra inhaled sharply. "What are you feeling?" he whispered. "I don't know," she answered truthfully. "It's not pain, but it's intense." "Pleasure," Eli suggested softly. "Maybe longing." Something within Lyra seemed to unravel, a tight control she hadn't known she maintained. The sensation increased as Eli leaned closer, his breath warm against her skin. "May I kiss you?" he asked. Lyra had studied human customs enough to understand the concept, though the practice was alien to Azurans. "Yes," she whispered, curious and suddenly nervous. When his lips touched hers, something extraordinary happened. A cascade of sensations flooded through her. Warmth, pressure, a sweet ache that spread from her chest throughout her body. She gasped against his mouth, overwhelmed. Eli pulled back immediately, concern in his eyes. "Did I hurt you?" "No," Lyra said, breathless. "I felt something. Not pain, but..." She pressed a hand to her chest. "Here, an ache, but pleasant." "Emotion," Eli said gently. "Maybe the beginning of something we humans call love." Lyra shook her head, momentarily frightened. "Impossible." Azurans don't feel? Eli finished. Or don't allow themselves to feel. That night, as they lay together, no longer just for warmth but for comfort and connection, Lyra permitted herself to explore these new sensations. Eli's touch awakened responses she never knew her body capable of, trembling, yearning, pleasure so intense it bordered on pain. When morning came, Lyra watched the sun rise over the snow-covered mountains and realized with perfect clarity she had been wrong all her life. She wasn't immune to pain. She had simply never allowed herself to feel deeply enough to risk it. Beyond invulnerability, the journey back to Geneva was quiet. Both Lyra and Eli lost in thought about what had transpired in the research station. For Lyra, the world had fundamentally changed. Colors seemed brighter, sounds more resonant. Most disorienting were the emotions that now surfaced without her consent. Joy when Eli smiled at her, apprehension when thinking about returning to Azura, and beneath it all a new vulnerability she couldn't ignore. The Azuran delegation received her with typical restraint, noting only that her delayed return had been unfortunate but acceptable. Yet Lyra noticed how they observed her subtle changes, the occasional smile, her less formal posture, the way her gaze followed Eli across rooms. "Your time with the human has affected you," observed senior diplomat Thez, her tone neutral but her eyes sharp. "I've gained valuable insights into Earth culture," Lyra replied carefully. "And more," Thez said. "Your emotional regulation has deteriorated." Once this would have shamed Lyra. Now she merely inclined her head. Perhaps emotional regulation is not always advantageous. As the days passed, Lyra found herself torn between two worlds. The diplomatic mission would conclude soon, and a decision loomed: return to Azura or request an extended assignment on Earth. The rational choice seemed clear, yet every time she considered leaving Eli, a physical pain gripped her chest. One evening, Lyra found Eli in the botanical garden where they had first discussed pain, now illuminated by soft evening lights. "I've been offered a permanent position at the Earth-Azura Scientific Exchange," she said without preamble. Eli looked up, hope and uncertainty mingling in his expression. "And will you accept?" "My superiors believe my condition makes me uniquely suited for extended Earth residence," Lyra explained. "But I now question whether they understand my condition at all." "What do you mean?" Lyra stepped closer, allowing her fingertips to brush his. "I thought I couldn't feel pain." "I was wrong. These past weeks have taught me that emotional pain is real. The thought of leaving you hurts in ways I never imagined possible." "Lyra," Eli began, his voice thick with emotion. "But I've also learned," she continued, "that this pain is the shadow cast by something luminous. On Azura, we're taught that vulnerability is weakness. Here with you, I've discovered it's the source of true connection." Eli took her hands in his. "So you're staying?" "I'm choosing," Lyra corrected. "Not just Earth over Azura, but feeling over numbness, pain over emptiness." She smiled, still marveling at how natural the expression now felt. "I'm choosing you." Under the garden lights, surrounded by Earth's riotous flora, Eli pulled her close. "You know this won't be easy," he murmured against her hair. "Our worlds are different. Our physiologies, our cultures." "I've calculated the probabilities," Lyra interrupted with a hint of her scientific precision. "Difficult, yes. Impossible, no." Eli laughed, the sound still her favorite Earth discovery. Always the scientist. "With new data," she added, rising on her toes to kiss him. Later, as they walked hand in hand through the garden, Lyra considered how far she had come from the girl who couldn't break. She had broken in a way. Her certainties shattered, her isolation cracked open to admit light and feeling. And in that breaking, she had found something her supposedly superior Azuran evolution had never provided: the profound strength that comes from choosing connection despite its risks. The diplomatic reports would state that Specialist Lyra remained on Earth to facilitate interspecies understanding. Only she would know the full truth, that a pain-immune alien had traveled across the stars to learn that the greatest discovery wasn't immunity from suffering, but the courage to embrace life with all its exquisite, terrible vulnerability. In Eli's arms, beneath Earth's star-scattered sky, Lyra finally understood what her parent Ven had tried to tell her. Pain and love were not opposites, but companions, each giving the other meaning, each making the universe not just observable but experienced, not just survived but lived.